My name is Jackson Shaw, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Clear Skye. And I'm joined today by a couple of my colleagues. We want to talk to you about our latest release of Clear Skye IGA 4.2. So, Paul, how about you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. My name's Paul Walker. I work in product management here, VP product management. Nice to see you all today.
And Jared.
Back to you, Jackson.
Hi, I'm Jared Munt, VP of Engineering, helping the dev and QA teams make our product better.
Exactly. So, really excited to be here for this release and to tell you a little bit about it. I do want to, let you know that it is available on the ServiceNow store today. In fact, we had it up yesterday, but since we're recording this today, we thought we'd say today. And on December 8th, so basically a week from now, if you're interested, we're going to send out invites to our customers and partners where we'll basically have another Zoom chat with folks from the product team, the three of us, but also some others, where we can go into a little bit more depth with you, answer some questions about things that may not be listed in the blog or may not be covered today. And one of the things we'd love to do also is get some feedback from all of our customers and partners about what they might want to see in a demo. Either we can do some demoing on the 8th or at a future date. So with that, I guess the last thing is just, if you do want a little bit more detail post this, you can check our blog. Paul wrote a really great blog article that goes into more depth. So you can check that out. So let's just get into a little bit of Q&A around this. I know there's been a ton of work, and I'd kind of like to ask both of you guys the same question, which is, if you had one particular thing you wanted to say, you really thought was, important in this release, what would you say it is? Paul, we'll start with you. What's the big rock that you think we moved out of the way for this release?
It's a great question, Jackson. Thanks for asking. It's always a hard one as well, right?
Yeah.
It's just a single piece of innovation of all the great work that the team's done in this release that I've seen firsthand. Making customers' dreams and needs a reality. Choosing just one's really hard. Just go through a few options with you. Depends on the persona. I mean, as we're maturing, we're coming across customers with pretty complex, cross-domain, cross-forest Active Directory deployments as a result of mergers and acquisitions and decades worth of, systems that are feeding AD and changes of teams and staffing, and it's quite complex. And we had customer requests that stretched our current connector, and we listened to them, and we worked with those customers to create a brand new AD connector that we've trialed in some of our largest customers with hundreds of thousands of AD records and many more memberships, cross-domain, cross-forests, met all their operational needs, improved functionality, easier to deploy, improve performance. So that's a great candidate. But there are others, right? So from an end user persona, there was no portal experience out of the box prior to this 4.2 release of Clear Skye.
Mm-hmm.
Customers were building their own, rolling their own demos, customer portals, their own experience. We listened to that demand. We've got a UX team that's done some great work providing an out-of-the-box experience that can be used in a customer's existing portal, but also provides a template, giving enhanced visibility into who's got access to what, and that's brand new, and it really raises the bar. But your question was just one. So I'm going to put my vote and my money behind the new onboarding workflow.
Okay.
So this is the first time we've gone, production ready with the new workflow technology from ServiceNow that's called Flow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a low-code, no-code approach that is strategic to ServiceNow and their platform. All their applications are adopting Flow. The flow is driven by a policy, and that policy includes things like the naming convention for identities, the correlation scheme. That means the matching of the inbound account to existing identity records.
Mhm.
It also allows people to configure the approvals all by a policy. So it helps remove customization, increases the time to value, and shows just how quickly we're maturing. But yeah, thanks for the question, Jackson. Back to you.
Awesome. And Jared, how about you? What's the thing you're either most proud of, or who's your favorite child in this family that we're birthing in 4.2?
I agree with Paul. There's a couple of honorable mentions in the mix as well. My favorites are typically centered around the connectors and doing fun things,
Right.
innovative things with integrations. My answer today is no exception to that. But before I do that, yeah, I do want to give a shout out to some of the new things that we have that are going to pay a lot of dividends to customers that want to use them. Like Paul mentioned, our portal, we have some modular widgets that can be used independently and can be totally merged into existing portals that customers are trained to use.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's going to pay a lot of dividends in the future is we are making a push to have the application self-documenting. So this is the first release where we're putting significant amount of embedded help. So when you don't have to leave the platform and switch over to a documentation website or a PDF or anything to figure out how to configure things. So that's look for plenty more of that in the future. But my number one feature is back to the integrations. Paul mentioned it, the cross-domain support for Active Directory, supporting big customers, lots of mergers, complicated Active Directory forests and trusts. We can now get all that data into ServiceNow.
Right. Okay. I figured it wouldn't be fair if I didn't get to answer the same question. And I think obviously everything we've done for this release is really important, and I should even say almost everything has been customer requested. And the one that I particularly gravitate towards is what we did with the ServiceNow chatbot and integrating with Microsoft Teams. And we basically did that on a customer request. And I just think it's so cool. I mean, I just think it's really, really, it's kind of like when we went from, everybody sending mails to someone sending a text message or an SMS message, right? I never quite understood what the rationale was behind sending a short message instead of an actual email. And I just think this chatbot is almost the same. You just have this different way of communicating with the system and either requesting things or approving access or looking up how many approvals are waiting for you if you're a manager or a business owner. I just think it's really cool. And we don't use Teams internally here. We use Slack, but the number of Slack messages we get and the amount of time that I'm in Slack, it's like night and day from previous roles where it'd be emails nonstop. So I think just getting into the use of chatbots is important, and with the couple of customers that requested it for this release, I think they're really going to be pleased with it. I'm just super excited about it and super pumped by what we're going to be able to do with that. So I'm looking forward to more feedback on that. And like I said, maybe that's something we can demo in December 8th. So Jared, I know since you and I've been working together, one of your big focuses has been around some of the boring stuff that we don't see, the stuff behind the curtain, like testing and defect resolution. Can you just provide a little bit of color about what we've done there? I think this is especially important for, the existing customers, and obviously the future customers, but we've put a huge amount of effort into this over the last 6 months, I'd say. And how do you feel that that's progressed for us?
It's come a long way in the last 3 months, in the last 6 months. As we've continued to grow, continue to hire people, we now are able to specialize and mature some of those processes quite quickly. I would say, between having a focused architecture, looking at solutions on future releases, QA you mentioned has been a huge success. Our documentation for this release is the best yet as well. I think our implementers and customers are going to be really happy when they have questions about how to configure things. But yeah, all of these things are going to work together. And the real output of that is going to be, we're going to be able to have more releases throughout the year, but they're also going to be smoother releases. So the amount of steps that it's going to take to upgrade a release is, it's going to be a lot lower friction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like ServiceNow. They want their customers to be on the newest version for consistency and stability and all those reasons. We are operating with that same model here. We want everyone to be able to upgrade and not have it take a month or two as an upgrade project. We want them to just, low friction is the answer.
Right. Paul, I'm interested in a little bit more color around the self-service portal. I mean, you and I have been doing identity for a long time, and self-service portals, it's not a new concept. I'm just curious from your perspective. I have kind of two-part question. One is, do you feel there's a particular item that or way that we've done something with the self-service portal? I mean, aside from the fact it's on ServiceNow, that makes it maybe more interesting or different. That's one question. And then the second question, and it's obviously a leading question, but we've obviously run into customers who've built their own self-service portals already, and I know that's one of the things that we took into account. So I kind of want to have you just give a little bit of color on what's kind of different about this, and customers that already have their own self-service portal, how can they take advantage of the work that we've done?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks. So the main goal we set out to achieve was to provide a flexible and adaptable experience for the customers. Most customers have got an existing portal. We are working with a few net new ServiceNow customers that don't have a customized portal and are looking to Clear Skye to provide, the transparent who's got access to what type of experience. So the way we achieved both those goals was to build a modular system that is flexible, uses as many out-of-the-box widgets and out-of-the-box pages and concepts as possible to make it familiar to existing ServiceNow folk who want to incorporate identity into their own portal. It can also be used, like I say, as a standalone experience by customers who may not yet have their own experience. So we feel that we've hit both of those goals by using modularity as well as out-of-the-box experiences. It's very easy to get carried away with custom widgets and making everything look just great using custom code. But when it comes to adapting it in the real world, people don't know those custom widgets. So they might look great, they might serve a purpose really well, but we wanted to stick with standard ServiceNow, so it's a familiar experience. And some of the ways we're showing access as well is quite interesting. So yeah, you may have permissions, you may have group memberships, or Azure roles, etc. But going down to the next level, peeling back that onion and saying, did I get this access via an operation natively on a system? Or did I get this through policy, right? Because if it's provided by policy and the policies are implemented by Clear Skye, then there's a business rationale behind you and I having that access. But if that access has been provided by, it could be a rogue administrator, it could be your friend who works in IT, then that's of interest. And our portal shows the difference between the different types of access that people have got. So I feel that's a good step forward into providing the transparent experience that everyone's looking for.
Right.
Back to you.
Awesome. Jared, I just wanted to get you to chat a little bit about the connectivity in this release. I know we've done a ton of work around connectors like Active Directory and Okta in particular. I know that I heard that we may have had a little breakthrough around performance with Active Directory, but do you have any extra color you could provide around either Active Directory or Okta connectors, because they're probably the two biggest ones that our customers are using at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, like I mentioned before, I love to talk about connectors. I could go deep on these. We could have a separate webinar just on performance improvements.
Right.
But yeah, within this, I mean, you and Paul both mentioned the word customer sourced, and that's where we keep coming back to. What things make it to the top of our priority list. And not surprisingly, none of our customers only have one integration. Every customer has lots of integrations.
Right.
And so we need to have consistency across all of our connectors. They need to behave similarly. They need to be debugged and administered similarly. And yeah, so the new Active Directory LDAP connector, the improved Okta connector, the new ones, SAP SuccessFactors, Workday, are all designed similarly. We have that methodology in place now where we can build every release. I expect to continue to have more out-of-box connectors and improve documentation so that customers and implementers can build their own connectors in the same fashion that we are building the connectors. But yeah, specifically within the Workday, or I'm sorry, within Okta and the new Active Directory connector, speed and stability are just huge improvements. Within Okta, we, again, as we're working with larger customers, we're importing more data, we're hitting some of those rate limits that are coded into the Okta API. We now have configurable variables so that we can stay beneath those thresholds, have nice consistent imports around the clock. But the biggest improvements are evident initially in the Active Directory LDAP connector, but it's going to be, that same technology will be accessible by any connector that uses the mid server.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and here, before the bottleneck was the communication between the mid server and the ServiceNow instance. And for large Active Directory implementations, we even had quite a bit of lag between the PowerShell executing on the mid server and the Active Directory server itself.
Right.
So we've solved both of those problems in 4.2. We now are talking to the Active Directory via LDAP and not PowerShell. We're not to go too deep, but we're just more gracefully handling Delta imports. We're more gracefully using what we're requesting from the server, so those Active Directories don't have to work as hard. And then we now have an efficient way to get data rapidly back into the instance. So now the bottleneck is actually the transform tables and the processing back on the ServiceNow instance. Some of our metrics that we're seeing is with the Active Directory LDAP connector, we are averaging around 3,000 accounts per minute. So definitely smashes all of our previous records, and we're able to support the largest customers in the world with these types of numbers.
Right. Awesome. And I know we have a couple of customers that are looking for exactly that functionality. Paul, kind of on the same note, I know that the whole HR focus of what we've done around this release is pretty important. I mean, do you have any particular comments or feedback you want to provide on what we've done around some of the other connectors?
Yeah, certainly. Many of you would have heard of Workday. Many of you would have heard of SuccessFactors, which is an SAP product. They're both SaaS cloud-based platforms. They both have HR modules. As you say, Workday is not just HR; it's almost an ecosystem to itself. So similar for SuccessFactors. These connectors were, requested often by our customers.
Right.
And what impressed me about the way that Jared's team worked on this particular release was their flexibility to work with customers. So they were customer sourced. We've mentioned that several times already on this webinar, but we had customers bending over backwards to work with us to build these connectors in a flexible way that met their needs. And so, writing the requirements as I do, working in the product team, it was there's always late coming requirements, and requirements get refined as people get their knowledge of what Clear Skye does, what identity concepts are. The customers are learning all the time. So are we. And seeing the way the team was flexible in the elegant way that they implemented, configuration to adapt to these different scenarios, because HR feeds can be complex. There can be effective dates, which are basically future dated events,
Right.
and how to map that onto identity terminology. It's not as simple as it seems. So we had customers in North America and Europe that were requesting both Workday and SuccessFactors. And in previous roles, I've seen, in my experience over the years, I've seen these connectors take a long time to get mature. Sometimes many quarters of effort by engineering teams to get mature. And I really feel that seeing the customers sign off as part of their project on the functionality we've provided, and seeing how their late changing requirements were easily met with the configurable approach we took, it was really great. And developers don't always want to collaborate externally, so it can be daunting to people, to anybody actually, cross different cultures, cross time zones.
Right.
Everybody's remote these days, so seeing a team of maybe non-English speakers work with our developers in our different centers around the world was really awesome. Right, so those connectors are both available in this release,
Right.
and they're ready for use. So
Awesome.
thanks.
Awesome. Jared, I'm going to reserve the last couple of questions for you, and I just thought of one that I'm going to throw into the mix here. The last bullet, strengthen security via the Now platform. I just wanted to ask you about that. I'll make it maybe a little easy for you, just because I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this one. But I think what we did was, if I understand correctly, ServiceNow has improved their, I'll call it secrets management or credential management in the platform. And we're using that now. If I got that correct, or is there some more color you can add to what we did specifically there?
It's true. Yeah. Paul mentioned most things ServiceNow builds these days are in Flow Designer, Integration Hub.
Right.
The place that they are training all of their clients around the world to handle credentials is within the credential or connection and credential alias table. And so we are enabling support for that for our connectors. Historically, we did not use that particular portion to store credentials. We had we were storing it in a similarly encrypted and secure fashion, but it was not where everyone was expecting to see it. So like I mentioned before, whether it's how to handle an upgrade or how to handle storage of credentials or debugging a integration, we are putting all of our debug information, all of our credentials right where the customer administrators expect to see it. Things in the syslog, in the upgrade history table around upgrades, and then around credentials and remote instance information. We're able to now use that.
Right. So it makes it, I guess, two things, that it puts all the security of the credentials on the ServiceNow platform, which obviously there's a huge amount of testing and I assume, red team, blue team stuff going on at ServiceNow. So that's a good thing. It reduces the threat surface, generally speaking. And then the other thing, which I think is almost equally important, is it makes upgrades easier, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was kind of my last question before we close out, Jared, was can you give a little bit of commentary about upgrades from previous releases to 4.2 and degree of difficulty or anything that can give an impression to a customer of what they would need to do?
Sure. Yeah, like I mentioned before, we want to make it easy. We want to have it be low friction. We want customers to take advantage of all our new features as soon as possible. That's one of the SaaS PaaS.
Get all this
benefits.
work, right?
So when we're designing the customer experience, how we want things to work, we do look at ServiceNow security incident response, how complicated is that upgrade. That's kind of the bar to beat. Looking at the out-of-box applications that are installed through applications in the store. And we want our app to just be seamless. We don't want to have to train someone on a separate install process, on a separate configuration process.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, with that, Jared, Paul, I really want to thank you for your time today, and for everybody who might be listening and watching. Looking forward to talking to some of you, hopefully, on December the 8th. We'll be gathered around the fireplace, so to speak. But we're incredibly happy and proud about this release. Believe it or not, we're already starting to work on our next 2 releases. So more to come in the immediate future. But thanks for attending, everyone. Really appreciate it.